Welcome to episode 24 of the What's a Hero podcast with me, Ken Fraunfelter. You know, I talk to a lot of people, and whether it be here on the podcast or just in everyday life, I'm kind of the guy who has no problem talking to strangers, either like while waiting in line at the grocery store or wherever else. Oftentimes, when my wife and I go out and I see someone I know or just talk to someone I don't know, she'll ask, "Who was that?" And a lot of times when I say, "Oh, that's so and so or so and so," and they're actually they do this or they're an owner of this business or something along those lines, they'll actually she'll look at me like, "How do you know these people?" Then there's times that I will talk to somebody, she'll say, "Who's that?" As if I was talking to him like I knew him, and she'll say, "Who was that?" And I'll say, "I don't know. Just talking to him in line." And she wants to. She's sometimes looks like just take a step back and wonder, how do you know these people? How do you talk to these people? So then we'll get together and we'll be with friends or whatever. And she'll say, "Oh, Ken's always that guy. He's always talking to somebody. He's always doing that." So, and so I was thinking about that the other day. And I was actually, we had a new officer with me, and he was riding with me. And that was one of the things I was driving through a parking lot of a store, and this guy was walking up to the store, and it was obvious what he did. He walks up, he forgot his mask because that's obviously it's coronavirus time. He forgets his mask, and you see him, look up to the sky, tilt his head back and go, "Oh man," turns around, walks back, starts walking back to his car. I pulled up next to him and I said, "You forgot your mask, didn't you?" He goes, "I did." I said, "I hate that too. I do it all the time." So I forget the mask, all that stuff like that. But, he and I had a good little laugh about it, and we drove on. And so the kid in the car with me, he was like, "Did you know that guy?" I said, "No, I don't know him at all." But in my job, I'm required to develop relationships. And you develop relationships by getting to know people, by having a common thread with people and joking around and having a good time with them. The same thing applies with your personal life. How do you develop things where you have uh, good relationships with people, and how do you make those work in a way in which they can learn from you and you can learn from them, and you can have an insight and they can have an insight into you, right? You can speak into their life, they can speak into yours. All these things are developed by way of relationship. So when the question gets asked, how do you know those people? I just know them, or I don't know them. But one thing I do know about them is that they're people, they're humans. That's all they are. They're humans, and they do things that humans do. We laugh, we cry, we have fun, we joke around. And I don't care if you tend to be, one way or another. You tend to be a grumpy person, or you tend to be a jovial person. You don't take things serious. Whatever the case may be, you are a person. And so if we have to live on this planet together, and I'm going to be serving you, because that's what I always talk about on here, is service to fellow man. My job is to have a relationship with you. So not only can I serve you, but I can help you. So with that in mind, I always consider building a relationship with people as being a very important tactic in your life, whether it's business, whether it's life, whether it's family, whether it's whatever. Build a relationship with somebody. So, with that being said, today's guest of mine, I have known for a fairly short amount of time. However, uh, I have uh, I have built a relationship with this person to where we talk, and we're able to. He was able to just speak into my life a couple weeks ago, and it really made a big difference. And I asked him, "Hey, would you want to be on the podcast?" He said, "Yeah, sure. That sounds great. Let's figure it out." By doing that, we develop a relationship because we have a mutual respect for each other. And so, uh, today I have my guest is he's a sergeant with the sheriff's office down in Southern California, and he's actually written a couple articles that I actually saw his name and read his articles long before I ever met him. However, uh, he's uh he's one of those guys he's willing to give information that he has, knowledge that he has, and or himself to help other people. And that is Mr. Jarrett Morris. Welcome to the What's a Hero podcast, sir.
Thanks, Ken. I really appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. I am too. It's when you said that, yeah, I'll be coming on. I'm like, sweet. That's cool. I mean, how often do you get to meet people that you just kind of you develop a relationship with, like I said, just out of nowhere, because you have a mutual respect and you have mutual things in common. So I think it's cool.
Yeah, a lot like your intro. I've used that tactic, whether for just a normal conversation with a trainee in the car, like you're talking about, or
Right.
whether that's the benefit of case. And it always works out well when you build those relationships and you just have a conversation with people. And
Right.
I just greatly enjoy it.
Yeah. And it's not so much, and you're not always just doing the whole, I'm building a relationship so I can get something out of you. I'm building a relationship so we can have a relationship. It's, I didn't get married so I can have someone cook and clean for me, because I'll tell you right now, my wife would be like, well, good luck. I'm going to do what I want to do. So, and I totally support her in that.
Yeah.
But she wants to have a relationship with me. So we work together for our mutual benefit. And I think that's what the ultimate goal and what we should be wanting to do is have a relationship for a mutual benefit. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I even preach to younger officers to go out when you go to Starbucks, when you go to In-N-Out Burger, reach out to people, just say hi to them, and you'll find out that, especially in today's times, a lot of people support us, a lot of people want to talk to us, and a lot of people are encouraged by us. So just having those simple conversations work out really well.
Yeah. A lot of times we get so dogged out by the stuff going on. Either we read it on social media or wherever we read it, and it just frustrates us. And we just like, oh my gosh, nobody likes us. And that's not the case, because you get down to the people right in front of your face, because you've developed a relationship with them. What do? They're like, oh man, I was wrong about you, or they are just supportive, and they've always been supportive. And they're busy working, they're busy doing their thing. They're not the ones that are spewing hate or whatever rhetoric.
Yeah, it's totally true. And I think it's very important for young officers and first responders to understand that people do support us, do love us, do like us. And they're out there.
I agree. So you're a sergeant with the sheriff's office, and you have been a law enforcement officer for how long?
16 years now, just 16 years in a week.
16 years in a week. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you still remember day one where you got hired, you came in there all shiny and a big smile on your face and willing to work as much as you possibly can.
And scared to death.
Yeah.
Yes, I do remember those days.
Yeah. And then when you got into it, you were doing it and you're like, oh, I can do that. Can I work all the overtime? Can I do all this different stuff? I want you to work every bit. And they're like, no, you just go home.
Yep, exactly. And I kind of had an interesting start. I actually started out as a records clerk in our jail when I first started with the sheriff's office, and quickly moved into a custody officer position. I stayed there for a couple of years, and man, was that an experience when it comes to first responders. And then I promoted to deputy, and then up the ranks through my department at that point.
That's cool. Very cool. So before we get there, I want to get there. I want to kind of flesh that out a little bit. But before we get to that, let's talk about who little Jarrett was. Do we call you little Jerry? Was that something they called you, or not so much?
No, I had bright red hair when I was a young kid, so I got called Carrot Top and those kind of names. Not little Jerry, but
yeah,
there was names out there.
Yeah, I think we all had some kind of name. But so, and you grew up, I guess, just outside playing, because I'm taking a stab at this, and this is kind of a running theme that I'm noticing as more I talk to people. You outside playing, just doing stuff, playing until the lights come on, and then you had to come in, or?
Yeah, I was very much like your last guest, where I would leave in the morning. I'd go to school, come home, do my homework, and I would be out. I'd be out playing. On the weekends, I'd be out riding my bike, exploring the wooded areas near my house with my friends. I grew up here in this county that I'm in, so I'm very familiar with it. But yeah, I played. And when I was a little kid, actually, I used to ride my bike around, just make a siren sound like I was the neighborhood cop, just rolling around the neighborhood, screaming siren sounds.
Yeah. And so the neighbors were like, oh, there's that Morris kid out there.
Yeah, I was well known.
That's cool. So you go through school, and I'm assuming did you want to be a police officer, or was it just because you're out there screaming sirens, or?
Yeah, as long as I can remember, I wanted to be a cop. My grandpa, my maternal grandpa, he was a retired deputy chief of Sacramento Police Department. And my uncle recently retired from LA County Sheriff's Office. And so I always looked up to them from the time that I can remember. I wanted to be a cop and chase this profession.
That's cool. And so everything, I'm assuming, going through school was just working towards that end.
Yeah, I had a couple detours in my life, as we all do,
Yeah.
and tried to explore different routes, but it all came back to me being right here today.
Yeah. So as you're going through school, were you doing sports and doing all that sort of stuff like normal kids do, or were you kind of more of a bookworm type guy? Or
So I thought I was an athlete, and I tried that my freshman year in high school. I played water polo. I sat on the side of the pool, freezing my butt off for most of the season. And so that's when I decided I probably shouldn't be doing this because I'm not good at it.
right?
And I was, uh, I guess you could call me a bookworm. I really developed a interest in school politics, and I ran through school politics all my high school career, and that built a lot of leadership in me, gave me a lot of experience dealing with people, and again, back to this career of service, it just helped out.
Right. So were you student body president or whatever going through?
Yeah, I was class president my sophomore and junior year, and then I was the actual school president my senior year of high school.
Oh wow. And so then were you sitting there saying, hey, I think I want to get into politics at any point, or you said, nope, I don't want to do politics. I want to.
No politics. Maybe a glimmer of that at one point, but it wasn't anything substantial. I actually really got into like event planning, because that's a lot of what obviously school politics are, is planning events, whether it's assemblies or dances or stuff like that. So I got into that, wanting to do event planning, and that was kind of one of my detours. Didn't last very long, but
No,
it was fun.
So then you obviously graduate school, and there's with no issue, you didn't get held back or any of that stuff, and then go right to college, or did you do something else?
So you talked about getting held back. I did get held back in kindergarten. That's kind of a fun fact about me. Ironically enough, I know several people in my agency who were held back in kindergarten. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, a fun fact.
Okay.
I did go to college. I got accepted to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, right out of high school. And to say the least, that was probably premature for me. I wasn't ready to go off to college.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that's obviously not near home, right? So it might be close enough within a couple hours, but it's not one where you're going home every night or you're going home on the weekends even. But you were out there and you were a kid with a whole bunch of newfound freedom.
Newfound freedom, a bunch of other kids who had newfound freedom, and it just equaled not necessarily a disaster, but I went out and I experimented with alcohol a lot. I got a job that paid me good money, and it kind of diverted my focus on school. And it was an interesting 2 years, but nonetheless, I ended up pulling out of Cal Poly because it wasn't the right thing for me at the time.
Yeah.
And I had some maturing to do.
That's cool. I mean, I guess cool in the sense that you understood that. And was it a sore subject for a little bit, or was it like, no, I know I need to make some adjustments?
It was a sore subject in my family. My parents weren't very happy about it. We spent a lot of money those first 2 years. I developed a lot of school loans those first 2 years. But for me, I made the decision, I made the mistakes, and I kind of just accepted it and started pushing forward for what was going to go on after that.
Right. And did you have an idea what you're going to do now that you're not? What was your next mission was going to be, or did you just say, hey, I'm just going to try to figure it out as I go?
My next mission was apply for the sheriff's office.
Just straight through. I'm going to college. I'm going to go to that.
Yeah, I went and got a job at Vaughn's. Worked at Vaughn's while I was applying and going through the application and grueling background process, and worked there until I got hired on with the sheriff's office.
I guess so it would, however long it took. It takes some people longer and some people shorter, and it's not because of somebody's inability to be good at what they do. It's just at that time there was just a ton of people that were applying, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, it was a big hiring push those years, and in 2005 lots of people got hired. I got hired with a huge class. It was busy.
Yeah. So I talked to a sergeant from LAPD several episodes ago, Mark Hildebrand, and he was telling that, when he tested, it was standing room only. And there's hundreds and hundreds of people in this school cafeteria that they borrowed for the weekend or whatever for the testing. Was that something similar for you?
Yeah, I remember, because for both custody deputy and deputy, we had to take obviously physical examinations. There was just a ton of people. I don't remember how many, but it was full. The athletic field was full. The classroom was full. We were taking the written test. It was a lot of people, a lot of competition.
Yeah, and it's just funny, we talk about that. However, you look at the way things are now, and there's not the standing room only, and it's kind of a harder gig. It's not so much that it's that there's not the jobs. It's just some people don't want to do them anymore.
Yeah, our agency's no different than many, no different than yours. We're struggling with recruitment. It's very expensive to live in Southern California.
Yeah.
And so that's one problem, plus the national narrative right now. We're just not getting the applicants that we did in years past. And it's heartbreaking and almost scary too, to see what our future is going to look like in this profession.
Yeah.
If we can't get these people hired.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. It's I don't know. You'd hate to see that, because it's in my estimation, it is such a noble profession that, everybody gives it this bad name. But if you were to do research on it, you go into the history of it, and you go into where it is now based off of how it got there, you'd be amazed at just what it is that this profession provides. And it's amazing. If it wasn't here, I couldn't imagine. But anyways, going back to school. So you're a young, early 20s something, and you're applying for whatever you can get in the door, because that's what you wanted to do your whole life, huh?
Yep, that's correct. I applied for deputy, and they didn't feel I was ready, which I, looking back now, I wasn't I do agree with. I wasn't ready to become a deputy. Obviously, I just dropped out of college because of my maturity reasons.
Right.
And so they were taking me on as a custody deputy, and while in the process, they allowed me to go work as a records clerk in our jail while I completed the background process, and the position opened up.
And that's cool. At that point, I guess you're looking at, hey, I'm getting my foot in the door. I'm making progress, as opposed to just bagging groceries at Vaughn's.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. And it's experience. I got experience in something related to this department, something related to law enforcement. And at that point in my life, it was anything. I'd take anything.
Yeah. Especially since everybody's kind of a little upset that you dropped out of school, you're trying to figure out where you're going to go. You're not living in my basement, young man, sort of stuff that you got told, I'm assuming.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember I got that same talk, and I'd gone into the Marines, but it was, I got that talk. You're not living here rent free. You know that, right? Guess I'm figuring out what I'm doing. So
some of the places I lived were very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of a funny story my dad tells us. When he turned 18 for graduation from high school, he got a brand new set of luggage from my grandma and my grandpa. And he's like, oh, wow. Am I going on? He's thinking he's going on a trip. They're going to send him to Europe or whatever. And my grandpa says, no, you're moving out. I just graduated. Yeah. You're done. You don't need us anymore. And this was obviously back in the 60s. And so he's like, he had to go figure things out until he realized, I need to do something. And he slept on couches and did all that other stuff until obviously then Vietnam came in, and I guess I'm going there. So, but
I like that luggage idea. I'm gonna have to use that when my kids get old enough.
And guess what? You got here's your present.
Yeah.
But he said it was a nice set, so I guess he had it for a number of years. But
I like it.
So you're there. You're working in records, and how long did you do that?
It was quick. I did it for it's probably 3 or 4 months before I got if you call it a promotion to custody officer at the time. And I started working the floor of our main jail.
So I like a corrections deputy sort of.
Yeah, it's now we reclassify as correction deputy now. Back then it was a correction officer.
Oh, I see. Okay. And so working basically in a jail, and you're a jailer, per air quotes.
A
And
jailer at, I think I was 23 years old, now supervising grown men and women. It was crazy.
right. and was that, I guess, intimidating as you're going into that, or?
Yeah. I'm a whole 5'7" at the time. I probably weighed a whopping 120 pounds and wearing this brand new deputy uniform and going in and feeding, telling these guys when to get up, when to eat, when to go to bed. It was a little intimidating at first, and it was a eye-opening experience that I would do again if I got more experience out of it. I tell guys today, go work in the jail and get some experience. You'll learn a ton in a very short period of time.
Yeah, you do a lot of quick growing up, I would assume, huh?
Absolutely.
And so was it as you're going through, are you thinking, hey, they're just regular people or whatever, or were you realizing that the guy that over there, he's in here because he robbed a bank, and this guy's over here, he beat up his wife, or this guy, and you're looking at the various things, and then were you able to separate those out from the person that they were, or?
Yeah, I went in with just, and this is how I worked my career the whole 16 years. They're just people. No matter what they did, I still have to, again, go back to build a relationship with them.
Yeah.
One, for me to complete my job. Two, for them to comply with me and feel comfortable with me, nonetheless, too, going through this horrifying process with them. And so I just looked at them as people. I had great conversations with some of these people. I was schooled by some of these people and told what I should and should not be doing in regards to my attitude or how I'm dealing with people.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an eye-opening experience. But yeah, I tried to treat them all as individuals and not necessarily look at, oh, you're here for raping, or you're here for killing somebody. You're a person. You're here. It is what it is.
Right. And so you're saying that you got schooled by a couple of them and explained, probably in no uncertain terms, that you shouldn't talk to people a certain way, or you should show a little more respect. And were you, not to say you're probably overly disrespectful, but as a young 20-something-year-old, you think you know everything already, and you think you're indestructible and all this other stuff. Did that come into play at some point where you said, hey, you had some epiphanies and some light shed on some things?
Yeah, it was more of, I need to exert my authority, and I didn't know how at 23 years old.
Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
And so I would go in with that attitude, and obviously it doesn't work out well for hardened criminals or people that are in these custody facilities for years and years. And so I remember I was doing a security check, and a guy named Boxer, he's a criminal street gang member,
Sure.
pulled me in, and he's like, hey man, like, I'm just telling you, the way that you're talking to these people, it's not going to work out well for you, and you're going to end up getting your butt kicked one of these days for the way you talk to people. And that took some reflection after that point in time.
Yeah. Because if he's able to tell you that, he's obviously seeing something. He's seen that. And then you go home, and I know as people, we think about it. If you're honest with yourself, you can sit back when somebody gives you that word, and you're thinking about, what did I do? And then you start thinking about all the different things, all the different times that you said something or did something based off of what they just told you. And then all of a sudden you're, what am I doing? And then how do I fix that? And then did you go and try to flesh that out, or did you just work on it yourself and try to change yourself? Or were you thinking,
Sorry about that.
no worries? think I lost him. I'll hold on until he comes on back.
Oh, sorry. I'm not sure what happened.
Back. No worries. It's all good. I was able to get everything paused as we needed it to. So
Okay.
let's see. Bring this back up. So yeah, were you able to reflect on all that, the way that he talked to you, and then work it out yourself, or did you go and reach out to any kind of mentors or anything like that and try to figure out what you needed to do?
A little bit of both. I reached out to some mentors, and not all of them were helpful, as sometimes they cannot be.
Mm-hmm.
I did reflect a couple times and reach out to that specific inmate too, and get some more opinions and more advice from him, whether that was right, wrong, or indifferent. But it did take me some time to figure that all out. I think I did work on it. And honestly, that conversation was the guiding light for the rest of my career, and the path that I chose, and the different assignments that I chose to take on after that.
Why is that?
I learned, based on that conversation, I learned how to talk to gang members really, really well. I learned how to build a rapport with gang members really, really well. And so after being promoted to deputy, going through the academy, I was quickly brought into our street gang unit, and I just worked with these gang members. I was able to build rapport with them. In 10 years that I worked street gangs, I maybe had 2 or 3 use of forces, and it was just because I was able to talk these gang members out of coming out of houses, out of coming out of cars, and just straight compliance and de-escalation, if you will, because I could talk to them, and I just had that ability to talk to them.
So what's the trick in doing that?
Treat them like people.
Weird, huh?
So weird. Just treat them like people. Like you were saying at the beginning, we all cry, we all laugh, we all do that. And I could develop that in conversation with them. And it worked out well for me. And I just had that ability to do that. And it was all, I always got it right back to that conversation. If I didn't have that conversation with that inmate, then my career probably would look a lot different than it does today, honestly.
Yeah. And it's huge when you step back and you look at those little moments. And I talk about this all the time on here as well, is that our life is like a pebble. You drop it in a pond, or a super calm pond that's just flat water. And what happens? All these ripples start going, and they just get bigger and bigger and bigger until they eventually go to the shore. Now those ripples, they can push a boat, they can make a wave, they can grow, the wind can pick them up, and they can get bigger and bigger, and they can get worse, or they can get better. They can help or they can harm. And you don't realize that one thing that's going to make the difference later on in your life as you're growing and as you're trying to become something more.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a little ripple. I would have never have guessed that it would have taken me where I did, but it was a very important moment in my life that I'm glad I had.
That's cool. Very cool. So you're working in the jail, and you're figuring out that this is that you obviously were wanting to be a patrol deputy. That was and you were saying since you were a little kid that you were riding around on your bike and doing stuff like that. Was that something that they asked you to come do, or did you just keep putting in for it?
I kept putting in for it. I have a great deal of respect for people that work custody facilities their whole entire careers.
Yeah.
That wasn't for me. I wanted to be out on the street badly. And so I kept putting in for it, and I just set my sights on making that happen, and until it did.
Yeah. And so you get that. And was that one of those days you're like, I've arrived? Or were you at that, I don't know, at that point where you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. Am I making the right decision? is this really what I want to do? But
I knew I was making the right decision. I was nervous because working in the custody facility, I've seen guys leave to go to the academy
mm-hmm.
and drop out and come back to work the custody facility. And I didn't want that to be me. And I remember I had a sergeant, my sergeant at the time that I was working in the jail. He told me, don't look back. This is not an option for you. You need to just go do it. And so I took that theme through the academy of either I make this or I'm going to go find something else to do.
Right.
And so it was intimidating. It was the police academy, especially back then, was difficult and hard to do. And so I took that theme. I developed a good relationship with another guy that was in the academy with me, and him and I just fought through it together and made it happen.
So I'm assuming yours may be there's similarities and I mean across the country, and there's differences. Was yours one of those more military styled type academies?
At the time it was, yes.
Yeah. And so you did a lot of, they checked your crease on your pant leg and you had to have your shine shoes and make sure all your gear was solid. And then all that stuff like that. And then I would assume also you're dealing with a whole bunch of everything that's all the book type stuff, all the testing and you have to know your penal codes and everything else, like off the top of your head, or was there a little bit of leeway? Like, well, you'll be able to look into a book, or you'll be able to.
Not at the time. So we kind of break it up a little bit. We have a week, which is essentially like a hell week, where a group of TAC officers for just my agency will march us and grill us and test us on the penal codes and health and safety code, vehicle codes, and various different things. We do a lot of quick changes. They would dump our stuff out in the middle of the locker room, and we'd have to go find all our stuff and get dressed in a matter of minutes. We end up wearing other people's clothes. So we did that for a week, and it was for pure preparation of what we were going into at the academy. They bring us into the academy, and there's several different agencies from all over the Southern California that are there. Mm-hmm. And same thing, a lot of grinder time, a lot of push-ups, a lot of pull-ups, a lot of memos. If we didn't get an answer right to a penal code, we had to write a memo that night and add all that on to all the classroom work and the tactical work and the exercises that we had to do. So it was pretty grueling when I went through it. At least that's what I thought at the time.
Yeah. I guess, as things kind of go, they change obviously, but can you imagine the way that it was previously, like years before, 20, 30 years before you had gone there, how just more grueling it would have been, almost boot camp-ish, which is what you're kind of saying it almost was anyways.
Yeah, well, I even remember my grandpa telling me that he actually was given the keys to a patrol unit and a gun and told to go out and patrol before he even went to the academy back when he started. So we have come a long ways, but yeah, it was very, very intense and hard for all of us and before us. And yeah. I don't know if it's the same today.
Yeah. I've heard stories, and it is different. And I've been doing it, like I said, about 14, 15 years, give or take. And it's just one of those things that it's when the new guys come back, they're like, oh, we're doing this. I'm like, they let you guys do that now? Or we have to do this. Oh, wow. We had so much freedom when we were there. It's a totally, it's just different, which is kind of goofy, but it's weird when you look at things and how they change and the way that it changes us too. So you get on the road and you get out there and you had field training just like everybody else does. You have a trainer in the car with you and you're going out there and they're making sure you're doing what's right and you're doing well and all that stuff. Or was it like, were they fairly strict, or was it more of a like, I want to make sure you know this and let's work on this? And
yeah, so I was very lucky compared to a lot of my classmates, my academy mates, if you will. My FTOs weren't necessarily on the extreme strict side as a lot of them had. I had 3 FTOs through my my field training phases, and they were all very good to me. They all taught me a lot of the basics that you need to know to go out and be a fundamental working solo police officer. And I actually had a good time in FTO. It was fun for me.
That's totally different than a lot of people think, oh, that was the most stressful time in my life. And I personally, I guess I didn't. I was in field training for a little bit longer than some people, and it was I had this one FTO that I just struggled with, and he struggled with me, and it was just difficult, and then he and I recently had a conversation, and he said, you're the one that I remember the most, but you're the one that you're my biggest failure in my career. And I'm like, what? Like, thinking it was me. He goes, no, I failed you. You're the biggest failure that I committed, because I think I could have done more for you. And it just, that it is very humbling for him to say that, but it made a huge difference for me. And he and I are really good friends now. And, but it was just weird when you go back and you look at, this person who had an effect on your life, and you don't realize the effect you had on theirs. It's kind of weird. So,
Yeah, the whole FTO process is just a strange element all in itself, because it's a lot of different factors. Us, like as the trainee, we having a good time, bad time in our life right now. Are the FTOs having a good time, bad time in their life? And just that combination of the two people being in one car day in and day out is just can be very stressful.
right.
And I, like I said, I got lucky. I know some of my friends did not get as lucky and were, like you said, stressed out the whole entire time.
Yeah. Yeah. But and there's some good to that too, because as you get out and you're on your own or whatever, and all that stress is no longer there. However, when stress does pop up, you have a place to go, because, hey, I've been in stressful situations before. And a lot of times that's what we do when we do scenario training, or we do, anything like that. That's why they want to make it stressful, because you're going to get into a stressful situation, guaranteed, if you're going to do this job. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So just knowing that information, you have some hope to get through the day, or get through the situation and go through it. You would agree with that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Stress induced training is important. I don't think we do it enough in law enforcement, but it has its great advantages.
Right. So you're there. You're now a deputy, and you're a patrol deputy. You're out there just regular, everyday copping, and that's it. Everything, life is good, and now you're the age you are, and nothing has changed about you. You're the same person. Everything's solid, right?
Yeah, I don't think so.
No. So
I think so.
so not so what happened? What happened to help you build yourself to become the person you are now during that time? Because you're doing a similar job that you were then, but obviously we grow, we change, we struggle. But what happened to make you who you are?
A lot of independence and a lot of going and handling these calls, whether it was by myself or just one partner. Now we are making life decisions for people who've had an entire time of their life to make a decision or to fix a problem that they're having, and now we're coming in and we're fixing their life problem in a matter of minutes.
Right.
And it was just several situations like that built that maturity, that built that confidence in me, that allowed me to just keep becoming a better and better peace officer in my agency.
Right. And so you had talked about, and as you're doing that, you're going through, you're meeting different people, you're building relationships like we've talked about, but you had talked about the gang member in jail, and then you've talked about your various other mentors that you had to talk to and figure out, and you had your sergeant that spoke with you and told you don't look back and all this different stuff. What is that importance of having a mentor, that you have somebody that you can talk to, and you can try to figure out life as you're going through it?
think, well, this is all I know, but probably in all aspects of life, it's very important to have a mentor. For me at the sheriff's office, you at your police agency, I'm sure you have a ton of mentors too, but you need those people to lean on. We're not here to try to figure out and reinvent the wheel, as you will. There's people that have done this. There's people that have been through similar situations. And so having those people to lean on is a must. We'd go crazy if we had to figure this all out every day, day after day. I find it very humbling now in my current role that I'm mentoring a lot of young deputies, and I'm here for them. They know they can call me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and a lot of my mentors are like that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we just need to be there for each other, especially in these, as I mentioned a couple of times, these trying times.
Yeah, I don't think people, you don't, when you're, I guess the rules of mentor mentee is the mentor does not seek out the mentee, and that's just the way it is. And if they are, there's something, they've got something else going on. They've got another plan going on. So if someone's looking for a mentor, that's good. If you don't realize that you're looking for a mentor, then you probably are, or you have no desire to better yourself. I guess on the other side of that is, if you think that you're so smart, you're so wise, and you have all this stuff, then and I need to find people to impart this wisdom onto. You're not in a position to be imparting any wisdom, and it's probably best that nobody finds you as that. Because what is one of the main, I guess, in your estimation, what is a good mentor?
Good mentor is someone that's going to listen. They're going to hear you out, especially for young deputies, I find, or young officers, that they're going through a lot. They're going through a lot that they don't necessarily even know how to process. And so I find it very important that they can come into my office, they can sit down and they can just talk, and they can talk when and if they're ready for advice, and they ask, or at least solicit, I'll give it to them, or a mentor should be giving it to them. But the number one quality is just being a good listener, and then providing sound advice when it's applicable.
Right. So obviously not when you want to, but when it's applicable. So, we always hear, lose that ego. Don't put your ego in front of that, because if you're the egotistical guy, you want to have the floor. You're always wanting to be talking. So somebody comes in to talk to you. Hey, I've got this issue. Well, let me tell you about your issue, boy. They're not going to listen to you, and so you need to drop that. And like you said, communicating. And one of the biggest things is in communication is listening, and not so much having to always have something to say. So
yeah, I know you're a follower of Jocko as well, but I use his tactic of just simply putting my hand on my chin so that I keep my mouth shut. And that helps me open my ears and just listen to what they have to say.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny because I was watching a maybe YouTube video or something the other day, and they were talking about how when you're reading a book, a lot of people, when they read, they mouth the words, whether they say it just under their breath, or they're actually just, their lips are just moving and reading and reading the words. And they said that that actually takes away from your absorption of the information that you're trying to read. So when you do that, if you can do something to keep your mouth from moving, keep your lips from moving, you're going to absorb the information a little bit better. And so that makes total sense with when you're listening to somebody. If you're keeping your mouth shut, you're going to absorb what they're having to say, so you can assimilate what they're having to say. And you may not have an answer for them right away. You may have to say, well, let me chew on this a little bit. Let me think about, but if there are issues where hey, okay, I'm listening. I got it. I know exactly where you're going with it, because either I've done this, or I've worked on it, or I know somebody else who did it. But yeah, just that whole idea of closing your mouth, absorb what you can before you reply and have some kind of retort for it.
Yeah, and just ask lots of questions, and you'll often find out that these people seeking information have the answer, or at least a 80% positive answer. But just asking them questions about the scenario, asking them questions about what's going on, you'll usually find that they'll get there themselves,
Right.
which makes it that much better, gives them more ownership in the problem.
Right.
And it's fun to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, it is kind of cool. And especially, and you don't, the big thing is you don't want to take credit for it. You're like, no, I'm here to support you. I'm not here to take credit for you getting better, or being better. I'm honestly, I just want to see you do better, and I don't want any credit for. And if it's up to them. If they want to say, nope, no, you did, everything you did just made the difference. Okay, cool, but it's you're doing it. So I guess that's the big thing with being a mentor is just not make it about you. Listen and be there to help them, support them.
And I think that's one of the best things of my career. Like I went through my career being a door kicker, served lots of search warrants, arrested lots of people, and I don't do that now. I'm more of an admin position where I'm currently at, but I get great joy from watching these young deputies grow, watching these young deputies succeed in what they want to do, and watching them have fun. Like I don't need to kick doors anymore. I don't need to go arrest people. I
Right.
get my thrills and joy out of watching them grow.
Right. Yeah, and that is cool. Yeah, it's like I guess when you become a parent and you have your kids at Christmas and they're opening their presents, you don't care about because when you were a kid, all you cared about was what was my next present? What's my next present? As you get older, you don't care. You want to see them open their presents. You want to see the looks on their face, and you want to see them having fun. And and I never understood that when I was younger. But the more you do it with your kids or whoever, the more you see it. And so that's kind of where they're at with you, being that you're 15 years their junior or whatever, or their senior, I'm sorry. And you're there, you're almost the big brother. You're the big the uncle at this point because it's or even a father figure for some.
Yeah, it's weird. I was just talking to somebody, one of the deputies today, and he's like, yeah, I'm almost here for 5 years, and I was like, wow, I've been here for almost 16. I remember when I was here for 5 years. It just
Right.
seems like yesterday.
Yeah. That, and it's kind of funny. I've heard this. I heard this one guy talking. He's a chief out of Chicago, the Chicago area, and he's retired and he does this. He goes cross country and does public speaking and stuff. But his big thing was you remember the guy that was new. He was fresh face and he was coming in there, and it may have been you. You walk in there and you're walking down the hallway, your shoulders back, your head's up, and you're just smiling. You're happy. You're excited to be there. And how you doing, sir? And then they walk past the grumpy old timer. And what are you so happy about? What are you smiling about? This place will eat your soul, and all this different stuff. And so he says, he goes, how did that kid become that grumpy guy? Because at some point, everybody is that. And like I mentioned about you starting out, you were that fresh faced kid. You're happy to be there. How do you become that grumpy guy? He goes, not everybody becomes that, but I guarantee that grumpy guy didn't start out that way. You know, so he as he talks about that, he goes, you have to be aware of who you are and what you're becoming, and how you grow, and are you letting all these things eat at you? So what are you doing outside of work? Because you can't be working all the time. So what are you doing outside of work? What are you doing in your relationships with other people, and having that? How does that work for you? So you know
Yeah, and so I totally agree with you. And I think one of the ways to combat being that grumpy old cop is taking care of yourself. Like if you dig into all the stress that we deal with on a daily basis, and you suppress it, and you're not taking care of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, you're going to become that grumpy old guy.
mhm.
And so for me, I have 3 kids. They're all young. They keep me very, very busy. So a lot of my after work time has to do with them. And other than that, I love working out. I work. I'm not quite as crazy of getting up at 4:30 in the morning, but I get up at 5 in the morning and work out every day.
Mhm.
And that way it makes me feel good to start off the day, and I'm ready ready to rock and roll. Other than that, I like going to the beach and I like going to the lake and spending the time just relaxing.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, this sounds along a lot along the same lines that I like to do. However, I get up at 3:30 to work out, but
Why so early?
well, work starts at 6.
Okay. That makes sense.
So I've got to make time somewhere, you know,
Yeah.
and so but what's cool is nobody else is in the gym or the workout room at that time. So I'm totally by myself, which is cool.
Perfect. That's great.
So I'm doing that, and it gets a little cooler. I would assume down Southern California, you have 75 all year long. It's awesome. 75 degrees. We get cold in the wintertime, and as you get north, and so my boat gets kind of put away during the late fall, and then obviously the winter and the early spring, and it's getting close to time to pull that thing out and do a little de-winterizing on it, I think. But yeah, no, I love going outside. I love doing things outside, and you know, I'd spend time with my kids more if they lived closer, but they have lives and they're doing great things, and I'm very proud of both of them. But just going out and doing stuff and making life about other people as opposed to making it about myself, because I can sit and watch TV and eat bonbons all day. I don't know if I like bonbons that much, but I can do that. But then I feel like I'm absolutely doing nothing, and I'm wasting time. I'm wasting my life. I'm wasting everything that I can. So
yeah, and looking back over my career, I've had many moments like that, especially when you're working that shift work and you're working those nights and you're up working all night long, and you try to sleep during the day and you feel lethargic. And I just wasted a lot of that time. I wish I would have had more forethought or momentum or even a mentor to push me to take more advantage of that time when I was younger, but I didn't. But I got there. I got there now, and I try to pass that wisdom on to others now.
yeah, I think a lot of people, and especially us younger, we don't think of, oh, I need a mentor, or we don't know who would be a good mentor. You might not have the most solid people in your life. However, you do have solid people in your life. And the more that as I get older and the more I go through things and meet more people and stuff, I try to find more people that are like-minded, who want to see me succeed for no other reason than they want to see me succeed. And so I say this, I look at the same thing. I want to try to find people who I want to see succeed. And so I want to share that with them and see them succeed as well. And sometimes you speak into somebody's life and they don't want to take it. They don't want to say that they don't want to admit that they have anything wrong with them. And yet there's everybody saying, hey, I've got this issue. And maybe people are coming to you and saying, hey, I am having a problem with this person. And you figure, hey, I've got a relationship. I'm going to go try to talk with that person. And they don't want to have any part of it, because I think a lot of times ego gets in the way. And I think they don't want to accept that. But you have to just look at yourself and say, I'm always looking for a mentor. Because you're going to get older and you're going to become the go-to mentor. But each of those go-to mentors, they have mentors of their own. They have people they've always gone to, and so you never know. The buck never stops.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it gets harder and harder the more you go up the chain to find those mentors, because obviously some are leaving through attrition and retirement and other things. But it's beneficial to grab on to some of those. And I have retired mentors that I still talk to and pick their brains. And when I'm prepping for a promotion or something like that, I'll sit down with them and I'll spend time with them, just because they mean that much to me and they're willing to give their time to me. But if you think you can go through life, or you can go through this career and not have somebody you need to lean on, it's going to be a rough 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And not just police work. I think in life in general, because I was just, on one of my previous podcasts, I was talking with somebody and we were talking about how you call your parents up, and you as an adult, and you're like, hey, I'm 40 something years old, but I'm calling you because I don't know what to do about, like the kids or whatever. And you have to be totally open to saying, hey, I'm failing here. How do I fix this? So
Yeah, that takes a lot. And sometimes we don't, like you said, we don't know that we need the help. Sometimes we're not ready to admit we need the help. But if we can go and say we need help, something's not working, something's failing, something's not going right, and you have that person to lean on to help you, or at least the roadmap to get to where you need to go, it's going to be of great benefit to you.
right, right. So you get to be kind of more administrative right now. You're working in your sheriff's office, and you got 3 kids that are always pulling at your heels saying, hey, I need here, I need this, I need that. And you come into my game, you come into my recital, you come in to do whatever. Where your time, what is your thing that you like to do? What is, and I'm not talking about just relaxing, but I'm talking about what do you do to kind of build yourself up and support yourself?
My big thing is working out,
Uh-huh.
and I take great advantage of going to therapy. I think therapy is great for law enforcement officers. So between working out every day, going to therapy once every couple of weeks, that's what builds me up. And then I put the sugar on top by taking hikes and going hiking in our area. We got beautiful terrain around here, and beautiful views, and so you add all 3 together, and it's very relaxing for me, if you will. It helps keep me grounded.
That's cool. Very cool. Um, are you and so I said that you're a writer, and you've written a couple articles that I first heard your name on. And what were those? What were those?
So I just kind of went on board with Police One not too long ago. My first article that I wrote for them was about technology that we're using in my agency. It's rapid DNA technology. And so I wrote an article about how we're applying rapid DNA technology into law enforcement and the benefits of doing so. My second article that I wrote for them was about leadership tactics for new officers. We always hear the term millennial, and I'll admit I'm a millennial. And then we have super millennials coming in after that, and there's challenges. I think every generation has challenges with newer generations, but we're seeing some very specific challenges with the newer deputies, newer officers in law enforcement. And so I wrote an article about that as well.
And people can, if they wanted to read that article, they could get on to Police One, just policeone.com, and they can go and check it out, right?
Yeah, you can simply type Police One Jarrett Morris, and it'll take you right to the articles.
It's 2 R's, 2 T's. So
that's correct.
Right. And so how did you get hooked up with those guys? It's just you say, hey, I'm interested, or had you done something that got their attention, or?
Yeah, I was interested in it. I like writing. I've been a writer since high school. Never really did anything with it, and so I got to the point in my career where I had some little extra time to explore some of these things. So I reached out to the editors at Police One, submitted a couple ideas to them, and they were happy to have me. And so far, I've liked the work that I provided them. And I actually think I have another article coming out with them this week.
That's well. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. I'll look out for it then. I mean, the reason I ask is because when I actually I read that article, somebody sent me that article recently and said, hey, you got to check this out. And I guess I say recently, it's probably 3 months ago or whatever. But, and he said, oh, check this out. Cause I had asked this question about, dealing with just the different growth of younger officers, newer officers, people who, they wanted to get into it, but now they're losing motivation or whatever the case is. How do we maintain that? And, I read that article, and it made such a difference when you start seeing how what it is that they're looking for. And you don't realize it, and you can't close your mind and say, hey, I'm going to be that cop, or we're doing this, and this is the way we've always done it, and this is how it's going to be done. You can't have that mentality as you're going through this, because not only are we changing, but the people that we're serving, that we're dealing with out on the street and stuff, they're changing. The things they want, the things that the things that they hope for. And so it was huge. It was a big eye opener. So when I when I actually got to meet you, I'm like, oh, cool, let's do this. And and since you're on board with it, I thought it was, let's see, fortuitous. That's not a word I use, but you're an author. You know what the meaning is more than I did.
Like it. Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate you reading it.
Yeah.
And like you said, you talk about service a lot on this podcast. And for me, it's not only service to the public, but it's service to, again, these deputies and these peace officers.
Right.
And I find it very important, because if we can build them up, we can teach them to be the right kind of peace officer, then it's only going to benefit the community. It's going to benefit us as an agency. And so I think it's very important. Not everybody agrees with my philosophy of the way that I look at these new deputies, but I believe in it, and I think it's very important.
Right. No, I agree. So where does this come from? Since you wanted to be a little kid and you're riding around on your bike with the sirens, and then now you're at that point where you've done the job and you're doing the job and you are helping the next generation to do the job. Where does that come from intrinsically in you? How did that grow? Or was it just, I like that sort of thing? Or because it can't, there's got to be more to it. It's almost like that. What's your, why do you want to be a cop question that they ask you during your interview when you first get hired,
Yeah. Well, it's kind of twofold, Ken. I greatly enjoy dealing with the public. I greatly enjoy enforcing the law. Like I said, I had good mentors, my grandpa, my uncle growing up, and they always had great stories to tell, and they always came home happy with a smile on their face and loved their careers. And so I wanted that. I'm just one of those people that just like being here. There's nothing else that I would rather be doing. I just want to be here. And then as I developed my career, it just kind of moved from being that door kicker and being that person who's taking the very bad people off the streets into watching and enjoying new people grow. And I can't really explain what it is, but I just get a great deal of joy watching new deputies succeed and push forward.
And I would assume not just new deputies, but people that you deal with, maybe people you've arrested or whatever, that become a success story, that get clean off of drugs or get their families back together or whatever. Right.
Yeah. I was actually just explaining to a non-law enforcement officer the other day, a girl that I grew up with, about those people, and having those people come up to you in the grocery store and tell you, hey, if it wasn't for you arresting me, my life would look completely different. You helped change my life that night. Whatever it was, I'll never know.
Right.
But it pushed them forward. So I don't get a lot of those experiences anymore in my current spot, but those are fun.
Yeah, no, I agree. You get those. Oh, Officer Fraunfelter is my favorite officer, and I'm thinking, why? What did I do? You don't even remember. Unfortunately, you don't remember. But obviously, that whatever pebble you dropped into their pond that caused their waves to ripple out and become something more and change their course makes a difference. And you never know what it's going to be. You never know who you're going to affect, good, bad, or otherwise. You never know what's going to be the right thing, the right way to go. So,
and it simply could be just the way you dealt with that person that day, the positive effect. You said hi to them, you asked them how their day was going, and that may make all the difference in the world to them for whatever reason.
Yeah,
that's what did it.
Because and everybody's got a story, and I remember people always talk about. I'd gone to seminars and stuff, and people would say, "Oh, you never know what somebody's going through. You never know what this person's history on their life is. So you have to give them grace. And the one thing you want to make sure that you don't do is deny them their dignity. And if you treat them like a human, like we've been saying this whole time, you treat them good, you treat them like they're people, whether they're on a 5-day meth bender or whatever, they're still people, and you still have to treat them with respect and dignity and not let them hurt themselves because they're not necessarily in their right mind at that moment, but they're people, and it may very well come back at some point to make the difference for you.
Sorry.
No worries.
All right. Sorry about
That's okay.
that.
All right. So anyways, where so are you looking at going to higher and promoting further on in your career? You said you're expecting a 30-year career, and so that would be means you're halfway.
I'm halfway. I'm actually sitting on our lieutenant's list right now. So if things go well and the stars align with themselves, I should be promoted to lieutenant within the next couple of years.
There you go. And looking at doing that, just being there until you figure that it's safe to go ahead and leave, and the county can take care of itself, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. One day I'll disappear and I'll just be a figment of everyone's imagination.
No, I doubt that. I think from what you're saying, because there's and maybe I've mentioned this on here before, but there was not a saying, but this calculation that somebody made up, and they said that there's three different things that people are going to look at when you leave, and that's um, it's going to say they're going to ask who when they say, "Oh, hey, do you remember Jarrett?" And they'll say who. So then obviously you're making zero impact. The other one is, "Oh, I'm glad that guy's gone," and that's obviously not where you want to be either. And it's not as bad as having zero impact, but it's still a negative impact. And then it's, man, I miss that guy. That guy made such a huge difference. As a matter of fact, he still did this, and we have the uh, Jarrett Morris training room named after him because of whatever reason, And I just use that as a as a stepping stone. But that's the thing, is that there's three different ways people are going to look at you when you're done and you're gone, and it's uh, it's a huge thing to have that weight to know that you have the potential to make a difference in other people's lives.
Yeah, I would like to think that I have been impactful on people. I've been positive on people. I know I can't do that for everybody, but for the ones that I have been an influence on and been a positive influence on, I hope to stay in their memories after I'm gone, and
Yeah.
they continue pushing forward.
Yeah. So I always ask this question of everybody. If you had the opportunity to go back and um, let's say it's everything's said and done, and you're done, you're on your deathbed or whatever, and somebody's given you an opportunity to go back and make things right, or fix a regret or something like that. Do you have anything like that? Do you have anything that you would go back and say, I'd like to change that?
Yeah, absolutely. And if any of your guests come on and say they don't, then I think they're lying. But I think one of the big things, there's a couple of things I could think of, but one of the big things is I wish I could have learned to subordinate my ego a lot younger in my career. I think looking back, my ego got in the way too many times. I got in way too many silly disputes with sergeants and others over my career on how I felt things should have been handled, and they felt differently, and I let my ego get in the way instead of just saying yes sir. um, there's that. And then I've been involved in some hairy situations that I wish they would have gone completely different. They're all justified and legal, but obviously when some of these situations we're involved in, they have bad outcomes, and
Right.
and I wish those would have been different, but they were what they were at the time. But if I could go back, I would change those.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that shows your humility when you say, this thing happened, and I'm a top-notch person now. I'm good to go. But that doesn't mean there wasn't things that happened in your life that you wish hadn't happened the way they did. Now, the way they happened helped you grow and to become the person that you are. But you take that guy that pulled you off to the side in jail, and instead of talking to you, he decided to attack you and beat the crap out of you. That could have been a very real possibility. However, that's not what he did. And so he decided to speak into your life, which made more of an impact than beating you up. So a lot of times we don't realize how much that also translates to what other people see. And what I see is a humble man who says, I life was, there's some bad stuff. I did bad stuff, and I learn from it, and I want to do better so I can pass that on to other people. And it's impressive. It's very impressive, Jarrett.
Well, thank you, Ken. I appreciate that. I'm not anywhere close to perfect. I got a lot of growing to do. I use JP Donnell's philosophy of 1 degree better every day. So I try to identify something I could be 1 degree better at, and I push that forward. But I appreciate it. I've taken some tumbles and I've worked hard to get here, and I enjoy passing that on to others.
That's awesome. Very cool. So, do you do anything, any social media, anything like that, or?
I do. I see how I explain this. So I do. I run a side business called Got Your Six Training, and I have a LinkedIn account and a Instagram account that's associated with that.
Hang on a second. My dog's deciding to yell when you're talking about that, so I paused you for a second.
It's all good.
He should be just about done. He kind of usually, like I said, UPS guy or something. Maybe I shouldn't order so many things off of Echelon Front.
Yeah, no doubt. My family is just giving me a hard time about that the other day. Everything's Jocko. I'm sorry.
Hey, sorry, babe. Yeah. Okay, so, all right, he's done barking. So we'll go back to, I'll ask if you have any social media. So do you have any social media that people can find you on, or?
I do. You can find me on LinkedIn simply by searching Jarrett Morris. Again, 2 R's, 2 T's. I also run a side business called Got Your Six Training, which provides online courses for law enforcement officers. And you can search for me on Instagram at Got Your Six Training.
Got Your Six Training, and it's just that quick and easy, and anybody can get in there and learn how to be a better copper.
Yep, you can take the classes at your convenience, sitting in your patrol car in the middle of the night in front of 7-Eleven or wherever you decide to do it, on your cell phone, laptop, whatever. You can, quick and easy.
That's pretty cool. Pretty cool. And so what are they? Is it just like and you said the lessons are fairly quick? It's just like a question answer sort of thing, or?
The classes are about 3-4 hours long. But you don't need to take them all at once. You can break it up, and it'll save your spot, and you can go back to it when you're good and ready.
Very cool. Very cool. So, so you can got your six, and you can go on there and do some extra copping, and you can get to check out Jarrett, and I'll also go to Police One and read some of his articles, and then look forward to the future articles that we're gonna be having pop up. And if you want to get a hold of the What's a Hero podcast, you can always get a hold of us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. We're on all of those. I am also on LinkedIn, and I am, I guess I'm humbled by the fact that there's folks like you out there, Jarrett, who are willing to come on and talk with us and impart some of the life lessons that you've got and willing to share that. And so that makes a huge difference. So there is, there's this, we were talking about it before, where there's this thing where police they're demonstratized in either social media or on the regular news. And honestly, if it's up to me, I'd say don't watch the news, but nobody, obviously, if you're listening to this, you listen to me, but you may not always agree with me. But I would encourage you to understand that if you are a police officer out there, you are appreciated more than you will ever realize. And there's a lot of support for you. There are people that love you and they will come to your aid if you need it. There are also those people who they are looking for you to mess up. So the best thing to do, and I heard this last week from actually Jocko Willink himself, he said, err on the side of professionalism. Be a professional, be a human that cares about humans and wants to serve his fellow man. Be professional about it, and you shouldn't have much to worry about. Obviously, people try to do whatever they try to do, but always err on that side of professionalism. So if you're listening to this, I want to thank you. If you're a police officer, you absolutely have my gratitude. And if you're a firefighter, you guys rock. You guys are there, and we're glad that you are there to keep us safe and keep us from burning and you're there to lift us up, and you're there to do all the medical stuff that some other people just cannot get to people to be able to provide. So to our nurses and our doctors that are on the front line, and to our military veterans who are out there keeping us the awesome country in which we are, I thank you very much. And to our teachers who helped us grow into becoming the people that we are today. So Jared, do you have any final comments you'd like to make in regards to the show here?
I think this was a great experience, Ken. I greatly appreciate you having me on, and I hope everybody out there stays safe and try to stay positive with what's going on in the world right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So for Jarrett Morris, and I am Ken Fraunfelter, this has been the What's a Hero podcast, and we are clear.